Speaking of corrections, we have some, like, I think this came out the day after we recorded. In all honesty, this news. The news is that our else words from last week, where we talked about the movies that were coming out, some changes have already been made to that. Deadpool 2 and the New Mutants have moved their dates. So Deadpool 2 is moving up 2 weeks from June 1st to May 18th. And the New Mutants is moving from April 13th to February 22nd, 2019. Oh, and also the other news is that Gambit is seeing its release date move from Valentine's Day 2019 to June 7th, 2019.
It's moving from halfway up Channing Tatum's ass to all the way up Channing Tatum's ass.
Yeah, so that one,
which is not a bad place to be.
Yeah, I agree with what you said in the pre-show of, until we get more out of it, like I'll go so far as a teaser trailer. I don't care what date they set, because that's right now, it's a goal. Basically, it's a game of flag football that you play in the park right now, and they're like, oh, well, we're not going to make this goal, so we're just going to move it back a little bit further so we have more time here. But
just real fast,
yeah,
at this point in time, which film has lost more directors, Gambit or The Flash? Because I feel like they've both gone through three, right? They've gone through three different directors. Like Ben Affleck's The Batman movie hasn't gone through that many directors yet. It's still just piss in the wind at this point, like a lot of DC's output. But the Gambit thing, it's like it came out of nowhere with Tatum wanting to do it. And it was, oh, what a weird thing. But yeah, I don't see him as Gambit, but he could probably do all right. He's been impressive in enough things that I wouldn't put anything past him at this point. You know, I am definitely, I'm not the giant Tatum fan, but I like his output. I think that even if you go back to his little I was gonna say dance off with your pants off, then sure, you know, he's always shown talent. I didn't like him getting killed in the second, so I heard spoilers, G.I. Joe, because I was like, the guy's earned his due. He should be a part of this. And it was kind of unnecessary to move the franchise over to The Rock, which is okay, but I thought a Rock Channing Tatum movie, that could have been fucking gangbusters, especially in hindsight. But this movie just keeps not happening. And at some point, he's going to be frustrated enough to not be into it. And with the situation of Fox getting acquired by Disney, how much are they really into this? How much should they be into it? Is it something that they're really like aching for? If we need this Gambit movie, you know, or do we service Tatum in another way? I mean, he's done such great movies taking place in space. He's got to be in a Star War.
Yeah. So, anyways, because I wasn't going to focus on that one, because again, that's so far out that it's, I mean, it's in video game terms, this is Duke Nukem Forever, or as I like to call the new Duke Nukem Forever, Red Dead Redemption 2, because that game gets pushed back so many times. It's the kids that you bully in the game Bully, also made by Rockstar Games. But I was going to talk about the other two movies, because it's really interesting, because last week with how they were going, there was a good month between the two, 2 months between Deadpool 2 and New Mutants here in America. But what did it, because I read an article the next day, I'm like, oh, well, okay, that's great. They got moved for the change of the studios to avoid having an overlap with X-Men movies in certain overseas markets where New Mutants and Deadpool 2 would have been in theaters at the same time. So basically, they don't want the fact that one thing's going to eat the lunch of another. It's like they want to get all the money they can out of New Mutants and all the money they can out of Deadpool 2, especially with those. I mean, there is overlap with those things because they're both rated R movies. They're both going to appeal more to the adult audiences as opposed to the kids. Well, unless the kids are like you or growing up.
Well, no. So if they were like me growing up, then right now they're practically dead. But no, I don't. I look at the New Mutants, and yes, it's. I expect it's R-rated. It is a horror themed kind of superhero movie. Is what we've seen, but I still see teenagers wanting to see it because it's their peers. They're a good likely audience for it, just in the same way that teens might have watched it, although it is taking place with younger kids.
Okay, when I say kids, I mean below teenager, not teens, because
Right.
I mean I was going to see R-rated movies when I was 12, but then again, I also look like I was 27 at the age of 12.
But I'm a little bitter, not just because I'm excited for a New Mutants movie, but because we've seen essentially a trailer for it. We've seen more footage of that than we've seen of Deadpool. So to have it be pushed back 8 months,
yeah,
it seems really, really off-putting. It feels like either they don't have confidence in it, or they're willing to sacrifice it, or because they want to see what else is going on with this deal with Disney. I'm not sure. They moved Deadpool into the slot that I believe is between the Han Solo film, #RedCup, and the new Avengers movie? Is that what's coming out on the other side of it?
I believe so, yeah. But I mean, even I think a lot of people might be looking too much into these things because of the Marvel Fox deal. I don't feel like Gambit is the one that okay, I could see it happening because they haven't gotten they have a writer on it who's written a script. They just need
Gambit is a fart in an elevator nobody's riding in right now.
But the other one, like pushing back New Mutants, I think they probably looked at moving it up as well. Like, okay, they're probably thinking, okay, we can't get it edited in time for that. Moving it back, they're like, well, there's no other movies that we feel like we could go up against and win. So
I don't buy the first one. I do buy the second one. I do believe that if you're in a heavy year of so many other superhero properties anyways, but that was always going to be the case. It's not going to get better. It's not like there's going to be less superhero movies coming out next year.
Not just superhero movies though. I'm talking about like other Fox movies, because again, we go with the whole them not wanting to eat their own lunch.
Oh, is there a goddamn bullshit Bryan Singer travesty of X-Men coming out this year too? Is the Jean Grey is fucking Phoenix again movie coming up? Is that what's happening?
Yeah,
God damn it.
Dark Phoenix is coming out in like October, November.
So if in some stupid way New Mutants somehow spins out of the new X-Men movie, then maybe that could make sense to me. But
no, I think it's gonna be separate. And then the other part is that obviously this is what obviously happened. I'm blanking on her name, but Sansa Stark obviously wanted to get her movie out before Arya.
She's already had one.
But no, like these two, they're like coming out, boom, same year. Be like, no, I want mine out first.
She already had one.
I'm not counting the other.
You're not.
Dark Phoenix.
Don't be dead.
I'm talking about the Dark Phoenix movie, the one that already had a cover, even though it's not coming out until end of the year, where they're like, oh, look, this is Sophie Turner. We have her in Entertainment Weekly talking about this movie, and it's coming out. And then it was a horrible joke. You just had to kill it. Thank you, Corey.
That's what I do. I bring the death to humor. Yeah, it's fine. I think if you want to go with your best foot forward right now, showing some strength with Deadpool 2 shows that Fox hasn't fucked everything up yet. So maybe it makes them look a little bit more palatable on the buy-in of the let's make sure this Disney thing really goes through by showing them the one thing that we've actually struck hot fucking coals with. And seeing Deadpool sooner than later doesn't suck. It's certainly, the first one was a lot of fun. I expect this next one to be a lot of fun. It's introducing some great characters that I'm excited for. It should be great. But I man, as much as I don't have an interest in any more of the Singer X-Men films, I was building an interest for the New Mutants movie. And I'm not pleased that it got pushed back in the way that it did. But in the end, as long as it comes out, man, don't fuck with me.
So in other
part 2.
True. But in other Marvel /comics news, Brian Michael Bendis has finished writing his Miles Morales story. That's one of the new bits of news that came out. That is not what we're going to be talking about, though, because they've been, and I have to say, I have to honestly applaud both sides of this with Marvel and DC for working with Brian Michael Bendis, because he had that health scare earlier this year. So the timetables for him ending at Marvel and coming to DC were a little bit thrown up in the air. But yeah, so it looks like he wrapped up Spider-Man 2. He's finished writing Spider-Man. But we've got news as to what his first thing would be. And I want to point out, some people are saying that he's taking over. I haven't found any articles saying he is taking over the book, but that he's doing a backup story for issue 1000 of Action Comics. He's going to be doing, like I said, he's a backup story, actually one of many I feel like this is DC's approach here with this.
In this story, which is from Screen Rant, it says people have theorized it'll take over for the Man of Steel and Action Comics after the 1000 issue. Yeah. So the 1000 issue will come out, finish off the storyline that I believe is it Dan Jurgens is writing the book right now.
Yes, Dan Jurgens is writing right now. With his story is Superman and Booster Gold. Actually, right now they've traveled back in time. Dan Jurgens is one of the creators of Booster Gold. They travel back in time to actually. I'm gonna back up a little bit before with this myself, because Dan Jurgens has been doing a great run on Action Comics. He's been doing since DC Rebirth. He's been doing Action Comics, and the story that he's been telling has been on par with Scott Snyder for the New 52 run of Batman, because it's this long, overarching story, but done in like a Stephen Moffat Doctor Who sort of way, where you're not realizing it's one long, overarching story until now that we're talking about it with number 1000.
Yeah, which is impressive because Dan Jurgens came in green, had no experience writing Superman or many other comics to begin with.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding, because Dan Jurgens famously has written Superman a lot and is one of the people who wrote The Death of Superman in the 90s, among many other Superman stories, and is sort of in this era of like, there's all these new creators and the new hot creators and stuff. Dan Jurgens is very old school, and the way that Mark Waid, many would see, is very old school, and being still prominent and still considered fresh, it shows the experience means something. Creators like that still have a lot to offer in comics, and all these young bucks who are not untalented still have to kind of like be compared to these guys like Jurgens or Busiek, or any number of creators who've been around from like the 80s on, and maybe even before that. It's not like it's a competition, but it is hey, this guy has been doing this for 40 years and you've been in it for 5 to 10, show some respect. And I think that they do. And I do see this as a handoff. It would make sense for Bendis, for Jurgens to finish his storyline in 1000, because I'm sure it's going to be an oversized issue, and then start Bendis's run at that same point in time, have him do his short story introduction and lead into what's coming next. Now, I also wonder if it's going to not only lead into what he could conceivably do in Action Comics, but maybe if it introduces another book that he might be doing at the same time, because one of the things that we've been waiting to come back, and we don't know who would be doing it, or it's not even been remotely announced that it's going to happen, is Legion of Superheroes. And it would make sense to bring back Legion in a Superman book, since Legion started out in Superboy many years ago. I don't know if that's the case. I'm just really speculating at this point, but I could see it.
So let me give you a little bit of backstory, or a little bit more information here on Action Comics number 1000. Like we have Dan Jurgens, that you have him with his main story. And like what I was going to say before, you have one of the backup stories is Brian Michael Bendis, his line with, I feel like this is how DC does all when they bring in a big name writer. It's, we'll get Jim Lee to draw for him, because they did it with a few other people too. And I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Get the guy who is in charge of the comic book part of things. But then another backup story in here is written by the Superman team of Peter J. Tomasi and Patrick Gleason. And as you were saying, they're going to probably do an oversized issue. Yes, they will be doing one. It will be dubbed Action Comics number 1000, 80 Years of Superman. The tome will be comprised of 300 pages of new and classic content, and will carry a price tag of $29.99.
Well, that's not the 1000 issue. That is a hardcover collection.
Yeah,
comes out at the same time.
Yeah. So, but that's gonna be the 1000th issue as well,
because that would be
has so much more
of comic collectors to say, hey, here's your anniversary issue of Superman. It's the number 1000 issue. We're going to charge you $30 for this. No,
so there's it's two separate things. So they're going to have the 1000th issue, but then they're also having the hardcover collection that's going to have a bunch of stuff in it as well that they're going to do for $30. But it is going to be, right now you have I think there might be another backstory in here too than just the two. I think there might be like three. But yeah, so I mean but you did hit it on the head with Brian Michael Bendis, because I mean with what we could be getting, which we won't know until issue 1000 comes out, which I think doesn't come out for another couple weeks or so.
We'll probably see some leaks and stuff going into it. And do we know who's drawing his story? Oh, Jim Lee's drawing his story, but we don't know who would be drawing coming out after that.
No.
Because he's working on that new hero line at DC with Dan DiDio and all these people that are basically ripping off Marvel characters.
Yeah, but I mean, it is really good to see this happen. And it's one of those things, like, this could just be this is his start here at DC. We're going to give him, the softballiest of starts. Not that he would need here's an easy start for you. But I mean, who knows? The next,
hopefully they will team him up with Keith Giffen, and so we can just have 30 panels a page. Because
actually, okay. Who I would like them to team up with him is, because he's been doing work on Young Animal, is his Powers co-creator, Michael Avon Emming.
Yeah, I think
yeah, because he's been doing Cave Carson. I'm sorry, I got confused. I thought I said a specific one. He's been doing Cave Carson, so get them partnered back together.
It seems likely that some of the people that Bendis has worked with before that are already over at DC or have left to come to DC with him, that they're going to do projects and stuff together as well. Not that Michael can't do projects without him, because obviously he can. You just mentioned one. Yeah. But it's nice when you get those team ups, because you have a team and you see something like Powers come out and you go, oh, I wonder what it would be like if these guys did this character over here, or if they did this team over here. So yeah, that's likely. But I think it also gives him an opportunity to work with people that he's never been able to work with because they were DC exclusive.
Yeah.
Before. So yeah, it'll be interesting. And like you, I'm very happy that his health is starting to improve, and that I wouldn't believe for a second that Marvel wouldn't give him the time to recover.
I don't
of years of relationship that they've had and everything. And just in general, I don't think, as much as I may chide Marvel for some of their creative decisions, they're not dicks.
No.
Not in that regard. It may be in other ways, but I think that they go, yeah, this guy created Miles Morales, created the Ultimate Universe with us, has worked on almost all of our books, and if we just shit on him at the last 5 minutes, like Jack Kirby, motherfuckers, then we're gonna hear that for the next 30 fucking years.
No, because I think you have what it could have been wrong here. I don't see it being on Marvel. I see it on being on both sides together, because like,
is this your Donald Trump moment? Obviously there were things done wrong on both sides.
Well, no. Well, let me explain here, and it might be, I don't know. I mean, I do talk with my hands quite a bit, but they are a little bit bigger than his, because it's one of those things, like, Marvel could easily go, like you just said, we don't want to shit on him and all that stuff. So yes, we will let him finish his stories, and instead of ending them, so much earlier. But then they have to work with DC in here, because DC's like, okay, well, we want to get you started here on what you have for ideas and stuff. We've already heard your pitches, and we want to get you here on these 4 or 5 books, however many books they want them to start out with. Well, now we got to move those back. That's going to create some turmoil here. So I feel like it was both sides working together so that it can be the smooth transition, to where both sides are happy.
I think in that case, though, DC again would not do that. Not just because, because I don't believe that they're just total asshats, but also because they're just hired this guy and they don't want to piss him off walking in the door. I'm sure Bendis would always have a carte blanche in at Valiant if he wanted. I don't think the guy's hurting for people who will give him a job, but yeah, just in general, DC's taken pains to be forgiving of illness in the case of, again, Kurt Busiek, who's had several stints where he's been really, really ill and it killed his output entirely. But they've stuck with him and they've supported him and everything. I see these corporations, and they are corporations, and now they're part of bigger and bigger corporations. But I still think there's a lot of people there who give a shit about the people that they work with every day and are not inhuman.
Except for the editors of Inhuman, because
yeah.
But anyways,
those people are just wrong.
Speaking of the of DC, one of the comics that has come out, it's an Elseworld story. Actually, it got partnered up really nice with the fact that we also have Nightwing New Order or New World Order. It's like these two Elseworld stories that break the characters in a nice, interesting way. So you got Nightwing New World Order about, following Nightwing, and there's in a Logan style, there's this big event that happened to where Nightwing had to unleash this doomsday device where everyone with powers, just like the powers are done. Powers are illegal, all this stuff. And hilarity ensues when his son has powers. Ha 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 ha. Oh, and it's all because it's his and Starfire's kid. So it's like Starfire's powers ramped up, and yay, fun adventures. Good story. I'm not knocking it. It's just that's my pitch of how
I had sex with an alien and somehow they had powers.
But the other one is Batman White Knight. And this is for fans of our show. I talked about the creator of this, one of his previous works with Mark Millar with Tokyo Ghost. And this is Sean Gordon Murphy. And he talked about the creative control and future of the series.
The premise of Batman White Knight it's
really cool. So Batman has gone so extreme with his crime fighting. The first issue, you see him chasing the Joker through the streets, taking his Batmobile, which is in the vein of, it's in a similar style to the Batmobile from Batman vs. Superman, or even the Dark Knight trilogy, so where it's more tanky than long car or anything like, it's been in the past. And he's just going through Gotham. Like, there's one point where he's just on rooftops and you see the destruction that is going on behind him. And he's with Batgirl, who's a little bit more like in the Robin role than how she traditionally is. And she's like, and Nightwing, both of them are chasing him going, Batman, stop. They're being the voice of reason. And he's just gung-ho on ending crime in Gotham. That's his whole mindset. So he catches up to Joker and force feeds him pills, trying to overdose him to kill the Joker. This is all in issue 1, by the way. We're halfway through. We're at issue 4, which came out like 2 weeks ago. Instead, what it does is it cures the Joker to where we have Jack Napier.
Oh, I was going to say, like a side of bacon?
No, so he's come to, and he's, the Jack Napier side has come to, and he's basically acquitted of all of his crimes because where the Joker's done heinous things, it's nothing that's really warranted jail time. And he's able to sort of talk his way out of the stuff that he's done. Like, I'm talking from the Gotham PD side of things. Like, because a lot of it is, he's like, well, Batman, look what Batman said. Batman just tore down a building to stop the Joker. And he even calls it the Joker like it's another personality. So we go through issues 2, 3, and 4 where Jack Napier has a way to save Gotham. In issue 4, they talk about, to put it in Marvel terms, it's the funding for damage control. Like, it's this like Gotham Batman destruction fund. And he goes, what if we take that and put it in with the Gotham police force in stopping the vigilantes and the supervillains, but with the police force. And the vigilantes can team up with them. They don't need to know their identities and all this stuff. And it's really cool. It ends with the Joker, essentially, with Jack Napier offering Nightwing and Batgirl their own Batmobiles. But it's really cool. There's the twist, and actually would be the one bit I would love to see them throw into main continuity, and it deals with Harley Quinn, because a lot of people know you have Batman the Animated Series Harley Quinn, and then you have this modern, and I'm sort of going around the Jimmy Palmiotti, Amanda Conner, this version of Harley Quinn for the video viewers, and they have, like, you have the Suicide Squad version of Harley Quinn, where the Margot Robbie played, where it's a little bit more, she dresses a little bit more sexy and all that stuff. In here, two separate Harley Quinns. You have Harleen Quinzel, who was the original, in the suit,
the actual Harlequin suit.
Yeah, the Harlequin suit that you see in the animated series and all that. She leaves, and then you get this origin story for the other Harley, who is the nympho, sex-crazed Stockholm Syndrome victim here. That's just was a really cool, like, I'm like, all right, this is a great concept here for this. But this is not an ElseNews or an ElseViews topic. I brought this up because of the fact that in the original scripts, it called for swearing, like actual swearing, not just the comic book symbols covering up the swear words. and it also called for a sex scene between Batman and Harley Quinn. That's the only censoring that DC did, and people were I think Sean Murphy was a little worried that DC was going to censor a lot more, but he basically did like an AMA on Twitter where he says that he mostly collects European comics where nudity isn't a big deal. So he envisioned Batman White Knight in that way, hoping it would be okay, but DC has the rights to control their content, because basically that's all they took out was you do the traditional comic book censoring of swearing, and then you censor the nudity, which he did, which brought up a lot of people wanting to release a director's cut. And he even brought up the point, like I mentioned before the show, of going, well, what about the people who are buying the single issues every week? If we were to release a new, or announce that we were releasing a collector's edition director's cut of the book that has more pages, where it's one thing to take out the substitute words in for the symbols, but to put in the sex scene or scenes maybe would be something else entirely.
I'm 46 years old. I'm married. I live in an age where if you want nudity, dear God, it's real easy to find it. I am not a person who finds any of that interesting. Now, at the same time, I don't object to comics like Heavy Metal or 2000 AD or any number of things that I've always been mature readers or adult readership. When I was a kid, I accidentally bought a Dracula comic that was an old black and white thing that I think might have been published by Marvel's publishing house, but was definitely not for kids. And we didn't realize it when I bought it. And all of a sudden I'm staring at boobs in there. And at that point, I'm like, holy crap, there's boobs in my comic. And then eventually I had to say, like, Dad, I don't know if this was meant for me. But I don't object to stories like this being told. The rougher part of it, and we talked about this a little bit back in the days of when Deadpool was coming out, is that you have an expectation that there are comics that feature Batman that are meant to be not necessarily all ages, but meant to be of a certain age group and above. And when it gets complicated is when you have a kid come into a store and saying, my mom lets me buy Batman comics all the time, so it's okay for me to buy this Batman comic. No, that one's not okay. And it's not like we haven't had mature stuff. I mean, The Dark Knight Returns is a mature story, and it's mature in theme as much as anything else. It's certainly more violent than what other Batman books were doing at the time. And over the years, I think the DC universe has done everything it can to match that. I get it. I get why some people are into this. It's just, it's not interesting to me if that's like the director's cut is, oh, we get to see a sex scene between Batman and Harley. And I'm just so sick of, like, let's throw Harley on everybody's dick. Bruce Timm fucking does it in the animated film. I'm like, see ya. But it's their characters, it's their right. I'm not the guy who's clamoring for that. But I do understand and appreciate Murphy's thought process of DC's giving me not exactly carte blanche, but giving me very little impact on the way that I want to tell this story. I'm telling it the way that I want to tell it. And other than a couple of things here or there that make sense for their business, they're pretty much hands off. I appreciate that, because you want the creators to have the ability to tell a story in the way they want to tell it. You still have to protect your trademarks, your stable of characters. You have to say, hey, when you're done telling this Batman story, we still have a bunch more years of telling Batman stories that we have to kind of keep in line. You can't fuck this up for everybody who's coming before you and after you. But for the most part, yeah, you say, sure, come in, tell the best story you can. You know, we'll fiddle with the things that only absolutely have to be fiddled with, but for the most part, we're trusting you to tell a good tale. And so I think that's great, which is fine. I'm not into it, but I get it.
And that's understandable. And I think it's like, you look at Sean Gordon Murphy, he comes from the creator-owned side of things a lot more. So he was worried himself with this when he originally pitched them the idea, or they got, however it came about, that they were going to cut back a lot more, because, you know, with the changing of the timeline, there's specific stuff about the death of Jason Todd that they tweak further. that I would have to reread to catch, because I think I've missed that part, or it's coming up.
It's all really weird because, like you said, it's an Elseworld story, right?
Yeah, but even then, it's one of those. It's sort of like one of those things that there are some things that he felt like that it wouldn't, like that would still be a same thing. It's, I don't know.
No, I can totally understand, because you go into your job and you say, hey, I've got this really great idea. We're making this Han Solo movie, and you get 50% into it, and then somebody comes down and says, the fuck you doing? And you're just like, dude, did you not read the fucking notes? I gave you a spreadsheet and shit. So yeah, I totally, it should never be, and I don't have a lot of professional experience with comics, just a smidge, the barest amuse-bouche of making comics, but it should never be a surprise to an editor what the fuck you're doing on a book at a company of this level. If you're in, I wouldn't even say in fucking Bongo Comics or Boom or anything, or Fantagraphics. I think that you should have some sort of expectation of, like, yeah, they're reading this with a somewhat fine-tooth comb to see, is this the right thing for us to even be funding? So yeah, I think you go, yeah, I'm writing about the Joker, and I'm writing about Batman. Batman's gone off the fucking rails. We're okay with it, right? Yeah, sure. Yep. Okay. Cool. Write that down. And there's two Harley Quinns. There's two Harley Quinns now. So this will keep people who are purists, Harley Quinn purists, from getting all pissed off, because the other one, I'm going to just make an outright gutter slut, which is a word Matt taught me. I know. And believe me, I don't have any problems with the character exploring their sexuality, female, male, whatever. That's all great. Again, I don't dig it, but sure, that. So yeah, you've got real pure Harley, and you've got modern Harley likes to spank it, and that's all okay. So again, editors fine with that. I don't think you get 4 issues in and be like, wow, I can't believe they're letting me do this. Have you been getting checks? You've been cutting the checks every month? I feel like if you got your pay, then they're all right with it. Hold on. Unless everybody's just like turning their heads and coughing as you walk past, and just whistling nonchalantly, saying, "Hope the people above me don't see this shit."
You're misinterpreting timeline here. It's not he's 4 issues in and holy shit, they're letting me get away with it. This is as he's writing the issue 1, and he has the layout for the whole 8-issue run of this first series, expecting a lot more that they're wanting to, like, he's answering questions. Like, the question was, how much did DC interfere with White Knight? And he came back, hardly none. I essentially have full creative control. I only had to edit for swearing and nudity. So basically meaning he has to do the comic book version of swearing with the symbols, and then creative cuts for the nudity, essentially.
All right. That's fine.
And the nudity part, he's like the people had mentioned up after that, like, well, is there going to be a director's cut where we get, or another version? And he had said maybe if DC will allow it, like,
I assume that they'll just stamp right on the cover Snyder cut, because that's what everybody, that will sell like fucking hotcakes to 12 people.
And then the other side of things is, someone asked, do you have plans for volume 2? Because people are loving this. I'm loving this story, and because it is an interesting tale of, because I talk very poetically about Batman and Joker, how they are yin and yang to each other, and it's like, what happens when those are flipped on, where Joker is the good and Batman is the evil, as it's just happening. We're right here at that, just past the intersection of them both being good and evil. And so he's like, yeah, I have plans for both volume 2 and 3. And I'm like, I read that and I'm like, sweet. That's like more White Knight coming up here.
There you go.
But yeah. And then the final bit of news is that Blue Ribbon Content has set up a Conan O'Brien comedy and a Critters adaptation as Go 90 series. Now, Go 90, for those of you who do not know, because you live outside of America or you've never even heard of it, is Verizon's digital TV thingy that they put with their phones.
As two people who are in America, we're like, I don't fucking know what Go 90 is.
Yeah.
I don't understand how this shit even fucking exists. But now I have to.
You'll probably notice it because it's one of those apps that's installed on your phone when you get a new phone at Verizon. All right, and you open it like one time and then you close it. But anyways, The first one is a live action comedy, Golden Revenge, from Conan O'Brien's Conoco LLC. And the other one is Critters, A New Binge, a series adaptation of the cult classic feature film. Both of them are live action. And basically, real quick, Golden Revenge follows three pets out to get even with the people who left them for dead in a heartwarming animal tale that quickly turns into a quest for bloody vengeance. Tom Stern will direct, in addition to co-writing with Josh Gardner, and they will both serve as executive producers. Now, Critters, this is one that, because Beat picked this for you, essentially. So explain Critters to people.
All right. Critters was a series of movies, started out in the 80s and had 4 films. I haven't seen all of them. I've only seen the first 2, but they kind of continue on. These alien creatures escape to Earth. They're all little furball bastards. It's kind of like Gremlins, except maybe even more violent. And people, I think, forget how violent the first Gremlins was. But they have these pins. They look like sort of little bowling ball porcupines, and they shoot these spikes out of their necks, and the spikes will drug a person. And then they just eat everything. They just eat things to shit. And these alien bounty hunters follow them down to destroy them. So the critters are out there wreaking havoc, and the alien bounty hunters, who don't really know much about Earth, are kind of fucking shit up too. And it's a fun series. It ended, I think the 4th one actually has Leonardo DiCaprio in it. So I'm excited to get through the rest of it. We did the first movie on Pot not too far into our starting the show, and we keep threatening to get back to the rest of the series. I own all of them. So this is a return of the story, and it's written as in the critters return to Earth to search for one of their kin. So it sounds like it's a continuation. And that was part of the thing that I liked about Critters, is that at least from the first movie to the second movie, there are characters that come back. It follows the story of some of these, the bounty hunters in particular, but some of the family and stuff from the first one. The kid not kid anymore, but the kid from the first Critters is played by the same guy who does Steve Smith's, and is on the Orville now. He's and went on to be an ER, I think, too.
Yeah, isn't he the redhead?
Yeah. So he was in Critters way back when. I love the movies. They're very funny, tongue-in-cheek humor with the over-the-top violence and weirdness of alien creatures and stuff. And they speak alien language, and sometimes you'll see them swear, and it doesn't get covered over because DC had no involvement in it. And it's just, they're a good old time. So I'm looking forward to this in the way that I hope it's good. I don't know how much I expect from it, but Critters weren't like big hit movies, but it could go the same way as like the Tremors TV series or the Tremors movies did. Yeah. And that would be fine with me. You know, I'm glad that the property's still getting some attention.
So to give some stats here for it, Jordan Rubin, John Kaplan, and Al Kaplan will write and executive produce. Jordan Rubin will also be directing. Rupert Harvey and Barry Opper from the original Critters film franchise are producing, and the series is produced by Abominable Pictures in association with Blue Ribbon Content for Verizon. This is expanding their Verizon and Blue Ribbon Content's relationship, because they started with the show Now We're Talking, which was a live action sports themed comedy, and that was renewed for a second season. And then there's also the original digital feature Good Girls Get High, that was an Alloy Entertainment production, or which will premiere on the streaming video service later this year. But yeah, so I mean, this is really cool. I just think, new ways of content getting out there is great. That's ultimately what I think things are going to go to.
Yeah, but questions that still need to be answered are, what does this service cost? Is it only available to Verizon subscribers? Is it only available on Verizon devices? No, can I get to this through my Roku? Is my question.
So to answer some of those questions, I believe it is free. It is like free ad support deal. It's pre-installed on Verizon, where I think you might get the commercial free version, and I could be remembering completely wrong. But it is just a regular app you download from iTunes or the Google Play Store, or the Amazon, but you wherever the app store you go to is at. And I forgot your last one, but I don't know.
Looking to see if they'll put out a Roku channel so I can actually watch it on my television without having to stream through like a Chromecast or something. And I don't see that so far when I look it up. It looks like it's been requested, but hasn't happened yet. And so at that point in time, it's about the same as when Community went over to Yahoo. except Yahoo actually had a Roku channel.
Mm-hmm.
It just didn't work very well when I tried to watch their space show. And that's the tough part, is you make a show and you put it in a place where people aren't even going to know to look to find it. Is it setting you up for failure? Is having Conan O'Brien be involved going to promote this thing in a better way than it has been? Because like I said, I've heard Go 90 because I'm a person who looks at weird channels and stuff, but I don't have much familiarity with it beyond the name and that it's associated with Verizon, because I haven't had any reason to go look. And I have a Verizon phone. You know, it's something that's available to me, but it's not.
Looking through this, it's like they've got some good content on here, different channels and all that.
Yeah, but remember, Powers was on the PlayStation.
Okay, but see, here's the difference though: is that it was like Powers was trying to start it. Like they were what you're referring to. It was them starting with original content. With this, a lot of it is digital stuff. You know, using YouTubers and stuff like that, but then you also get ESPN. It has stuff on here. You can watch every episode of Veronica Mars. So, you know, if you're one of those people who likes to binge watch shows that you were watching before, you can do that again.
I would say yes to that, except I think I actually own all of Veronica Mars.
Yeah. Well, but see, here's the thing. My friend owns all of Smallville on DVD. When it came to Hulu, they started rewatching it again, and I'm like,
right, because it's right there. It's convenient. It's in a service with a bunch of other content. Yeah. That's my thing. It's there's something about put it in front of me and I'll watch it. If I have to go spelunking to find your fucking channel and a way to get it into where I would want to watch things, that makes it tough and it makes it less enticing. You know, yes, Critters is something that I will try to get to. That is the selling point for me as the weirdo horror movie fan that I am, and with a specific taste in horror movies. And my wife likes Critters too, so for us that will be important.
Yeah.
But for a lot of people, it will suffer in obscurity because it's not on Hulu and it's not on Netflix or Amazon. It's something that it's too many hoops.
But I think part of this though is also a little bit of a generation thing. Because, like I said, a lot of this is geared towards the younger people.
Geared towards younger people again. Geared towards younger people. Here's a franchise that was hip in the 80s, kids. You know, that's.
But I'm talking about like all this. Like
Conan O'Brien, he knows how to talk to the youth.
but what I'm saying here is, like, from looking through their content, this is obviously not geared for people who will be sitting in their chairs watching the TV with it. It is geared for people who are sitting on the train or, you know, on the bus going about, you know, around town
and
watching it that way.
It is a drowning property because what those kids watch can be from anywhere, and they have so much wealth of options in that case between YouTube and Vimeo and just fucking people masturbating on websites. Whatever the fuck you want is out there already. So, like, what says, but today I have to check out this show about pets who are so angry that it sounds like they're pissing on people. Is that what the show is about? Are they so mad that because it's called Golden something? Maybe that's a better retriever. I don't know. That messy. Just sounds messy. Like, I'll watch a movie about monkeys flinging their crap at people because, you know, I know what's hilarious, but pissing, you know, it's not like I'm running for president and I'm hanging out in Russia. So you got to have standards.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of standards, we have none. That's why I'm going to shamelessly plug how you could support us. You can do that by going over to gncasts.com/support. And on there, you will find a link to our Patreon page. It is basically direct funding. Patreon takes a cut of it, but whatever. I mean, you know, they got to eat too. But it'll take you over to patreon.com/galacticnetcasts, where you could support us for as little as $1 a month. We're not doing a per post thing or per episode or whatnot. It's just a monthly charge. So you can donate as little as $1, as much as you want. And, you know, help us out. gncast.com/support.
For more on this Galactic Network podcast, go to gncast.com. That's gncast.com.